The Columbia Icefield is the largest icefield in the Rocky Mountains of North America, located in the Canadian Rockies astride the Continental Divide along the border of British Columbia and Alberta, Canada. The icefield lies partly in the northwestern tip of Banff National Park and partly in the southern end of Jasper National Park. Description: the Columbia Icefield is located in the Canadian Rockies astride the Continental Divide along the border of British Columbia and Alberta, Canada. The icefield lies partly in the northwestern tip of Banff National Park and partly in the southern end of Jasper National Park. It is about 325 square kilometers in area, 100 meters to 365 meters in depth, and receives up to 7 meters of snowfall per year. History: the Columbia Icefield was formed during the Great Glaciation, or Illinoisan period. The initial advancement of the icefield ended during the latter millennia of the early Wisconsin period, around the time Homo sapiens began to appear on the Earth. The next major advance of the icefield occurred during the late Wisconsin period, which marked the end of the major intercontinental landmass bridges. During the Crowfoot Glacier advance, humans learned farming and civilizations began to develop along the Tigris, Euphrates, and Nile rivers. The last major period of advance occurred during the Little Ice Age, which lasted from about 1200 to 1900 AD. Around 1800, the Athabasca Glacier peaked, then went through a period of recession, and then advanced again until 1840, when it began receding until the present day. The Columbia Icefield was one of the last major geological features to be discovered by man in Western Canada, due to its isolation and harsh weather conditions. In April 1827, Scottish botanist David Douglas was crossing Athabasca Pass, a major trading route located north of the icefield, when he climbed one of the adjacent mountain peaks. He reported his first ascent in his journal, describing it to be 6,000 meters in height. In the summer of 1884, geology professor Arthur Philemon Coleman explored the Great Divide from Banff to Jasper in search of Douglas's giant peak. While unsuccessful, he did discover the route that would become the Icefield Parkway. In July 1898, British explorer J. Norman Colley and his friends Hugh Stutfield and Herman Woolley set off in search of Douglas's giants, equipped by the famous Banff outfitter Bill Pato. On the morning of August 18, Colley and Woolley climbed the east side of Mount Athabasca, moved up the glacier when the ridge gave way to crumbling rock, and made their way to the summit, where they discovered an icefield that extended to almost every horizon. Colley later wrote, "The view that lay before us in the evening light was one that does not often fall to the lot of modern mountaineers. A new world was spread at our feet. To the westward stretched a vast icefield, probably never before seen by the human eye, and surrounded by entirely unknown, unnamed and unclimbed peaks." In 1900, former British clergyman James Outram came to the Canadian Rockies to recover his health after a nervous breakdown. The following year he made the first ascent of Mount Assiniboine, then considered the Matterhorn of the Rockies. In 1902, Outram made 10 first ascents of peaks over 3,050 meters and discovered 4 new mountain passes in the Columbia Icefield area. 2 of his first ascents in 1902 were Mount Columbia and Mount Bryce, one of the most dangerous and difficult summits in the Rocky Mountains. Following World War I, other mountaineering firsts occurred. In 1923, American climbers James Monroe Thorington and W. Lad joined Austrian guide Conrad Kane to summit the daunting North Twin Peak, Mount Columbia, and Mount Saskatchewan in 5 days. The following year, another American expedition led by William O. Field and guide Edward Fuse climbed both the North Twin Peak and the South Twin Peak in 24 hours, a combined distance of about 60 kilometers. In 1927, A.J. Ostheimer discovered a new route to the North Peak summit, made first ascents of Stutfield Peak and Mount Kitchener, and became the first climber to traverse the snow dome in 36 hours. During his 63-day visit to the Columbia Icefield, Ostheimer and his 2 companions walked over 1,000 kilometers and climbed 30 peaks, 25 of which were first ascents. In March 1932, 3 men undertook a remarkable skiing journey from Jasper to Banff that covered about 500 kilometers. When Cliff White, Joe Weiss, and Russell Bennett reached the Columbia Icefield, they climbed to the summit of Snow Dome, and then made a downhill run descent of almost 3,000 meters which lasted for 50 kilometers, the longest continuous ski run in Canadian history up to that point. Their accomplishment played a major role in generating worldwide interest in the Canadian Rockies. Today, mountaineers and skiers from around the world come to the Columbia Icefield to explore some of the classic routes discovered by these early pioneers of mountaineering. Glaciers. The Icefield feeds 8 major glaciers, including Athabasca Glacier, Castleguard Glacier, Columbia Glacier, Dome Glacier, Stutfield Glacier, Saskatchewan Glacier. Parts of the Icefield are visible from the Icefield's Parkway. The Athabasca Glacier has receded significantly since its greatest modern-era extent in 1844. During the summer months, visitors to the area can travel onto the glacier in the comfort of large snow coaches. The Columbia Icefield is also a major destination for ski mountaineering in the winter months. The Icefield was first reported in 1898 by J. Norman Colley and Herman Woolley after they had completed the first ascent of Mount Athabasca. The Athabasca River and the North Saskatchewan River originate in the Columbia Icefield as the tributary headwaters of the Columbia River. As the Icefield is atop a triple continental divide, these waters flow ultimately north to the Arctic Ocean, east to Hudson Bay, and south and west to the Pacific Ocean. Hudson Bay, in some watershed divisions, is considered to be in the Arctic watershed, in which case this would arguably not be a triple continental divide point. Mountains. Some of the highest mountains in the Canada Rockies are located around the edges: Mount Andromeda, Mount Athabasca, Mount Bryce, Mount Castleguard, Mount Columbia, Mount King Edward, Mount Kitchener, North Twin Peak, South Twin Peak, Snow Dome, Stutfield Peak.